In the picture, they didn't seem to make any noise at all. And I don't think Adam and Eve came from Borneo, but I have to check on that. So Borneo is very interesting geographically. This is it. It's the third largest island in the world, I think. And all this part is Indonesia. It's called Kalimantan. And I didn't go there, so I'm really deceiving you, because I really didn't go to all of Borneo. I just went to this part. Oops.
Whoa.
The two states of Malaysia, which are here, Sabah and Sarawak, and then to Brunei, which is a separate country, the Kingdom of Brunei. So to put it in context, this is Indonesia, which takes up most of the island, and there's this is Malaysia, and this is Brunei again. And then in context, the rest of Malaysia, the mainland, is here. So these are two states of Malaysia that are across the sea in Borneo. This all was at one time, a long time ago, together, but now it's quite different. And of course, all of this is Indonesia. And here again, you can see the geography better. So, and as you know, Malaysia is hooked on to Singapore. So you go to Singapore, you can hop right over to Malaysia by bus. And then we have to cross this border to get to the island of Borneo. So as I said, it's the third largest island in the world, the largest island in Asia. And it's divided among three countries, Malaysia and Brunei and Indonesia. But of course, most of it there is Molly. Okay, I'm going backwards. Molly, I was waiting for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I'm going to go backwards so you can see your painting.
And we're so sorry about Arthur.
Thank you.
You're welcome, dear. Isn't that gorgeous?
Hey!
Now we all want to see the original.
Now we can begin.
I thought you'd like that. You like the sounds that go with it? Can you hear?
Called Adam and Eve.
And we want to know who the artist is. What is it?
Adam and Eve.
The artist?
Harry Sternberg.
Harry Sternberg. Okay. Harry.
Harry Sternberg.
Okay. Because we all like it a lot.
Yeah, I love it.
And do you like the sounds that go with it?
Sure.
That's the rainforest. Okay, so I was just explaining what Borneo is. And it's a big island.
Is that Harry Sternberg from Escondido?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh my goodness, Harry
He
Sternberg.
started in New York.
Well, he's going to get a lot of business today. We really like that painting.
I believe anything left.
So, again, the island's divided among three countries, parts of countries anyway. Malaysia, Brunei is a country in itself, very small, and Indonesia, which is huge. So, the two states, the Malaysian states, are Sabah and Sarawak, 26% of the island, and Brunei, which is very small, is 1% of the island, but actually one of the most interesting parts of the island. And of course, Borneo is home to one of the oldest rainforests in the world, and that's what the rainforest sounds were, even though that you didn't hear any tigers. But Borneo is not a country. A lot of people think it is, but it isn't. It's an island. So, he's an interesting character. I saw him actually. So I just went to Sabah and Sarawak and to the Sultanate of Brunei. That's the three places that I went to. Tattoos on the older men are a good sign of status, and we'll see them later in the Longhouse visit. I started out in Sarawak, I think, and there's so much traffic there that I was having trouble crossing the street. And I think it was these girls or something like these girls, young women, who helped me across the street. It was almost impossible to cross the street. You wouldn't think a lot of traffic in Borneo, but there was.
Wow.
And there's also a strong Chinese presence there. What's interesting about these is Muslim women is their outfits are so pretty. They wear a lot of pastels, and they look so nice compared, for example, with Saudi Arabia, which is all black. This was a big shopping center, actually, in Kota Kinabalu, which we'll talk about in a minute. Okay, so again, to reiterate, Sabah, the capital is Kota. I call it Kinabalu, it may be Kinabalu, I'm not sure. And that has about 3 million population in Sabah. Sarawak, the capital is Kuching, and I have to say that, anybody have been to Kuching? It's one of my favorite places. I really fell in love with it. And that's got about 2.5 million people in Sarawak. And the national language is Malay, but almost everybody speaks English. So here's about Sabah. Sabah is a Malaysian state. The two states are part of Malaysia. In the northern part of Borneo, and Mount Kinabalu is the highest peak on the island, and it's what Sabah is known for. And it has, well, you'll see the distinctive granite spires on top. And also it has wonderful beaches because it's surrounded by water. Very nice beaches and beach resorts. Coral reefs, rainforest, wildlife. I only saw the apes. I didn't see any tigers, fortunately. But there it is, and you can see that it's got water and all, the whole island, of course, because it's an island. There's a lot of water, a lot of beaches. This is a street in Kota Kinabalu, which has a population of like 500,000. And again, people were very friendly. And it's not all rainforest and jungle. There is civilization there. See? So Sabah has one of the highest population growth rates in the country because they have a lot of illegal immigration. And it's thought almost like our illegal immigration. The state encourages it, probably for labor. But people come from elsewhere in Malaysia and from Indonesia, and particularly from the Muslim-dominated parts of the Philippines. So those people are granted citizenship, and as a result, the native Sabahans, who are not Muslim, sort of resent these minorities, and it is a cause of ethnic tension in Sabah. So that sounds like a familiar scenario to you. I would say it's a lot about what's going on in politics right now, that our Native Americans, which are usually first or second generation, are resenting the influx of illegal immigrants from other countries. And again, it's not all rainforest. There's some fancy places there. I didn't stay in that place. I would never stay in that place.
Why?
Because it's too fancy and it's not like the natives would stay. Not that I stayed in a hut or anything, but. So this is the airport, again, very modern. And this is downtown. This is one of the beach resorts. And this is one of the many mosques in the whole island. This one is in Kota Kinabalu. This is the highest point here. And no, I didn't climb to the highest point. It's it's only, I guess, 13,500 feet. And coming from Colorado, that's a small mountain, but. So these are the granite outcroppings on top of the mountain. Better view of it. It's a beautiful view up there, even though I didn't climb to the top. So there's a little Malay language for you. So at least it's written in Latin characters so you can understand it. Or what is it, Arabic, Latin, whatever. And there's a gallery there, and there's the park. It is a World Heritage Site.
Oh my.
Yeah, so watch out. I don't know what he did, but went into the protected place, I guess. So these are records for how quickly people climb the mountain.
Oh.
And I guess the veterans get a special category.
Ah.
And they usually climb with backpacks. Well, actually they don't. Here's some young women. I don't think they're going to climb either. And they probably have high heels on. This woman is a porter, and she climbs the mountain several times a day. And she carries the supplies for these other guys who are competing with each other to get up there pretty fast. So obviously she's the strongest and fastest one of them all. It's a lot of weight she's got on there, on her head.
Wow.
And this might be a regular climber who has an umbrella. It is a rainforest, so it gets pretty wet up there. And there's a beautiful botanical garden with a little restaurant. I love that one.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
This is a little restaurant. I forget what's in these pots. Something good, I think. How many of you have been in Malaysia? Anybody? Yes, Nancy. I thought the food in Malaysia was exceptionally wonderful. And the food here is pretty good too. Of course, there's a lot of seafood. And there's a big Chinese influence there. A lot of Chinese people living in these two Malaysian states. This is an open market. This is a boat port, obviously. That's not what you call it.
Marina.
Marina, thank you. And here's another picture of the shoreline. As you can see, there's some pretty fancy hotels here. The open market was fun. And again, these beautiful hijabs that the women wear are so lovely to see. Fresh fish being caught, and again, another mosque. So that brings us to the second Malaysian state, which is Sarawak. And this population is not growing so rapidly, and it sort of reflects what I had mentioned before, that the Christian population is more like the people who were there already, and the Muslim population is 30% now. They don't have as many illegal immigrants as Sabah does. And there are Buddhists because they're Chinese, they're Taoists, or other religions. It's quite diverse, which is very interesting about it. And it's the only state in Malaysia, which is a Muslim country, where Christians outnumber the Muslims. How many have been to Kuala Lumpur? Has one of the biggest mosques in the world. So Islam is the second largest religion in Sarawak, and many Muslims are from these other ethnic groups. Buddhism is the third largest, practiced mainly by Chinese Muslims. He just came along for the ride. Sarawak is very endowed with natural resources, especially natural gas and petroleum, and it's been the mainstay of the Malaysian federal government. That is, the oil is shipped over to the mainland, while the state of Sarawak only gets a 5% royalty share from it.
Oh dear.
It's not a poor state by any means, though. It's also one of the world's largest exporters of tropical hardwood timber, and is a major contribution to Malaysian exports. Tourism plays a major role in the state's economy. In 2014, Sarawak was visited by 5 million tourists, both international and domestic. Contributed to 17% of the state's GDP. It is a good place to visit. It's hot there, that's the only reservation I would have. Hot and humid. And this was December, so. So these are some of the buildings in Sarawak, and it's interesting that this this is where the governor of the state lives, and it's called the Astana. And of course, if you remember from the movie, the slideshow I showed on Kazakhstan, and I had gone to the city, this capital, called Astana. Why these two things have the same name, I have no idea. But it's quite an interesting building. The State Assembly building, which we'll see later. This is the cat statue, which we'll see later. And this is a view of the beautiful river, the Sarawak River that goes through the city. And you can take a cruise down it. It's quite lovely. There again, the Astana. And it's a palace in Kuching, which, as I said, is, I think, a delightful city. And very prosperous and very growing. If they sold stock in Kuching, I would buy it tomorrow. So it's the capital of Sarawak, a bustling, very diverse city of old colonial buildings and modern towers. Along its Sarawak River waterfront are shop houses selling handicrafts, food, vendors, and an esplanade with views of 19th century landmarks. The Astana, former palace of the White Rajas, and Fort Margarita, built to thwart pirates. All of that is on the, as you go up the river, as about 135,000 people. So it was hot. The average temperature in the whole island is about 89, and that's over a 12-month period, and it doesn't get much cooler. It maybe goes down to the high 70s at night. But Kuching is progressive, interesting, colorful, with a lot of building going on around the river, apartment houses, hotels, condos. And it's become one of the major industrial commercial centers in East Malaysia. This is East Malaysia. It's lovely. The only city, this is very interesting, the only city in Malaysia to be administered by two mayors. The city is divided into Kuching North and Kuching South. My guide told me, I picked up guides as I went along, that he said one mayor is Chinese and the other mayor is Malay. Because they have about half and half. And there is a little resentment of the Chinese, as there is in Malaysia, of course. But to make peace, I guess they have two mayors. Now how that works, I have no idea, but that's it. So there's the state legislature.
Wow.
Isn't that a fascinating building? I think it's wonderful. 30 different ethnic groups in Kuching. The Han Chinese and the Malay are the two largest. But it makes for a very interesting city. So here is the cats again. I missed, or I forgot why they have the statue to the cats and the kittens. I don't know. And there's a lot of Chinese architecture and decoration in Kuching. There's a Chinese market, there's a Chinatown, I think this is it. And of course there's the Sarawak River again. There's the South Kuching City Hall. I'm not sure that there's a North Kuching City Hall. And the Chinese market. And the Kuching Civic Center. Very imaginative architecture going on there. There's a very interesting Sarawak museum, which has really tells you how the people used to live in their different housing situations. I mentioned, this is in the museum, but I mentioned him because he's going to reappear in the narrative a little later.
How big is the giant rat?
I think this guy's about 1.5 feet long.
Oh, really giant.
Yes, I mean, you know, possums are really giant rats too. I mean, this one has the name of a rat. If he was called a possum, we'd think he was cute, like Pogo or something. They make these beautiful straw things there. A very nice mosque in Kuching. I can almost feel the heat when I see these pictures. And
I lived in Georgia on the water, and we had big rats.
big rats in Georgia.
Just like that.
I mean, there's a rat, and now a video going viral of a rat bringing down a slice of pizza in New York City?
Oh, I saw
Have you
that.
seen that? The waterfront.
Boys.
Very interesting down there. The women are very involved in the fishing business and the vegetable market. Did you ever see a pouting, pretty Muslim young woman in a beautiful hijab? Here she is. Her mother's a little miffed at her. I don't know what's going on there, but she has cheeks like Dizzy Gillespie. Maybe she's a trombone player. Giant cucumbers. I'm not sure where he's going with his knife. It's a little ominous. If he was in Texas, he'd be arrested as a young terrorist, but I don't think this is objective here. I found this big shopping center, which was very interesting. I had lovely conversations with the young woman behind the counter, and then upstairs was this amusement floor, and there are a lot of young men there. I think these are video games or something. This is the King and Queen of Malaysia. Malaysia is a monarchy, but I didn't talk much about Malaysia in the slideshow. I should, I guess. But it's got a parliament. I don't know that much about Malaysia's government, but it seems to be working. It's a pretty prosperous country. And more Chinese influence. So this takes us to the third place that I went to, the country, the kingdom, the Sultanate of Brunei. A small place, but very interesting. A tiny nation on the island of Borneo in two distinct sections. It's surrounded by part of Malaysia. I mean, it's cut through by part of Malaysia. And it's surrounded by Malaysia and the South China Sea, known for its beaches. I wouldn't say so. Known for its mosques, I think. And biodiverse rainforest, accessed by longboat, which we'll see later, which affords canopy walks, glimpses of traditional longhouse culture, which we will see later, and endemic flora and fauna, such as the proboscis monkey, which I don't have a picture of. Also orangutans, which I do have a picture of. Brunei gained its independence from the United Kingdom in 1984. The economic growth during the 1990s and 2000 averaged 56% a year. 56% a year from 1999 to 2008. The capital is Bandar Seri Begawan. The king has been king for quite a long time, I forget how long, and we'll see more about him. They have their own dollar, and they have 500,000 people there, all of whom seem very rich. I didn't learn as much as I would like to have had about the economy, but I have the impression from something I read, I think, that something like 90% of the population is on the government payroll, and so they get a check, and there's very little disparity in income distribution, so people are rich. There's not very many places to spend the money. So there's some pretty nice restaurants, and I was very surprised. I have slides of this from somewhere, and I couldn't find them, but I have taken pictures of little fat kids in restaurants demanding to eat more milkshakes. They look a lot like American kids. They're very spoiled, it seemed to me, and they're quite wealthy. So this is the Sultan of Brunei, one of the richest men in the world. Of course, he's only worth 20 billion, so that's only twice as much as Donald Trump. So that's not a big deal, but he is pretty rich, and he has a very big palace, which we'll talk about.
He's 69.
So he's 69. These two don't look alike, but they are the same guy. He's got 3 wives,
Wow.
which is modest for somebody so rich. Got the biggest house you could ever imagine. And he just took over from his father, peaceful transition, who abdicated in 1967. At one time, the legal system was based on English common law, but Sharia law was introduced a couple of years ago, in 2011. And I'm going to tell you something more about that, which is a little alarming. There is a parliament, but I'm not sure what role they have. So here again are the king and queen, gotten a little older in this bottom picture.
Wow.
So it's mostly Malays in Brunei with some Chinese influence, a small percentage of indigenous Borneans and Indians and others, and we'll talk about the others soon. They're Sunni Islam. They're quite Islamic. It's a mixture, so the economy is a mixture of foreign and domestic entrepreneurship, government regulation, welfare measures, and village tradition. And by welfare measures, I think I'm talking about these checks that government employees get. I went into the post office to mail a postcard and was served, of course, by government employees. And they were two very well-dressed women who were very snippy. And I figured, oh, they're getting their checks anyway, whether they're nice to customers or not. So crude oil and natural gas production account for 90% of the GDP in Brunei. It's the fourth largest producer of oil in Southeast Asia and the ninth largest exporter of natural gas in the world. It's a little tiny place. Has the second highest human development index. That is, my understanding of the Human Development Index is the use they put to their citizens. So I think their citizens are pretty well educated. They're employed in this way that these two women in the post office were employed. And second largest after Singapore. And Brunei is classified as a developed country. I don't think Malaysia is, and I don't think Indonesia is. These are developing countries, but Brunei is a developed country. It belongs to ASEAN, the World Trade Organization, the United Nations, all sorts of things, both East and West. The International Monetary Fund says it's the fifth richest nation in the world,
Wow.
and one of two countries, the other being Libya, which I can hardly believe, with no public debt.
Amazing.
And it's the first East Asian state to adopt Sharia law. That's really scary, I think. The national anthem is God Bless the Sultan. And the two languages are Malay and English. Malay is the official language, but a lot of people speak English. The government is a unitary, Islamic, absolute monarchy. Good way to get rich, I think, to be an absolute monarchy with oil and gas. It was a British protectorate. It was occupied by the Japanese during World War II. Again, another brutal occupation. And it became independent from Great Britain in 1984. And Brunei and the UK share the responsibility for security and defense, much like we defend so many other countries. And for some reason, the Gurkha, there are Gurkha units are there now. I don't know that Brunei has been at war with anybody. Except in World War II when the Japanese occupied it. Brunei has one of the highest car ownership rates in the world. They don't know what else to spend their money on. The fuel is very cheap, the roads are good, and people live in the urban areas. There is some public transportation. I took it myself. But people are very rich and looking for opportunities. English and Chinese are widely spoken. Chinese is the language of instruction from primary to the university. That's really remarkable. There's a large expatriate community, most coming from non-Muslim countries, such as Australia, UK, South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and India, which makes it very interesting. Islam is the official religion of Brunei, and the foreign workers that are imported do not come from Muslim countries, unlike Dubai. Brunei is much more conservative than its neighbors Indonesia and Malaysia. Islam has a strong influence. There's no alcohol for the Malays, but foreigners can have a small amount. This has been rated as not free by Freedom House. It is a totalitarian regime. The newspapers are controlled by the state. They're not totally controlled. There's 6 TV stations that are controlled by the state. But criticism of the government is rare because people are getting along pretty well. And people in Brunei are used to a complete totalitarian government for the last 3,000 years. So they don't know much about criticizing the government. But they do have Facebook. And as I say, absolute monarchies have governed since the 14th century. But this is a very benign government as far as people's wealth and well-being are concerned, and education and health. So these are people from ASEAN, the Asian alliance of 9 countries. Singapore is the wealthiest of them. Well, I think Singapore and Brunei are the wealthiest, but Indonesia, Malaysia, I can't remember what the other ASEAN countries are. Most are Muslim, as I remember correctly, but not Singapore. I stayed in a hotel in Singapore where there was some kind of conference going on, and the women were wearing these really beautiful hijab, all pastels and colorful and lovely. And they were very cheerful. So these people are now in Brunei to talk about English training, and they have an East-West Center where they're meeting. English is the official language of ASEAN and the leading language of global commerce and diplomacy. So this project aims to strengthen ASEAN's integration into the Western world. And they're certainly integrating. You can become a citizen of Brunei only through one's parents, not through birth. So you can't go there pregnant and have your child. Parents who are stateless, and there are those immigrants who don't have a state, have to apply for a special pass for a child, because if they don't have a registration, they can't get the kid in school. Sexual intercourse with a female under 14, it constitutes rape and is punishable by imprisonment for 8 to 30 years and not less than 12 strokes of the cane. I think this has actually changed since Sharia has been introduced. So this is what I want to talk about. Brunei's revised penal code, Sharia, in April of 2014, this was way after I was there, stipulates the death penalty for numerous offenses. I didn't name them all, but such as insulting or defaming the Prophet Muhammad, the death penalty. Insulting any verses of the Quran and Hadith. Blasphemy, declaring oneself a prophet or non-Muslim. It's quite different. Robbery, rape, adultery, sodomy, extramarital sex relations for Muslims, and murder. That's a lot of offenses that get the death penalty. Just for Muslims, this only applies to the Muslim population. Stoning to death is a specified method of execution for crimes of a sexual nature, including homosexuality. So, the United Nations says that application of the death penalty for such a broad range of offenses contravenes international law. Now, what's going to happen about that? Who knows? The evidence that's needed to convict somebody for a death penalty offense is 4 trusted, impartial, and truthful witnesses in attendance, supposed to be in attendance of the crime. Without these, there is no stoning. So there is some judicial restraint there. There's been no death penalty under Sharia since it was passed, but that's only about 1.5 years ago. Brunei, this has nothing to do with Sharia, but Brunei is the first country in Asia to ban shark finning nationwide. That's progress. And cutting off hands and dismembering people are forms of punishment in addition to stoning. So when people are concerned about Sharia law coming here, this is what they're concerned about. Also, that religious education has been made compulsory for Muslim children. They don't go to secular schools, they go to Islamic schools. Businesses must close during Friday prayers, and that we've seen around the Middle East too. It only applies to 2/3 of the population. Sharia had existed before in the courts just to resolve family matters, and that's still true in Indonesia and Malaysia, except for one province in each country which has gone to full Sharia law. So the capital here is Bandar Seri Begawan. There are 3 huge mosques here. I mean huge and beautiful mosques with chandeliers that would cost the GDP of one whole country. It's really remarkable. Again, somewhere I have pictures of this which I couldn't find. There's a giant supermarket. There's the Sultan's Palace, which is the largest in the world with, get this, 1,778 rooms for the king and queen, or the Sultan and his wife, and 258 bathrooms. There are shopping malls. There are restaurants, very nice restaurants. There's very good, I thought, good public transport and a lively downtown. Hello. I think that was a proboscis monkey. We didn't see it.
No.
Not a proboscis, okay. Some Chinese decoration here. This is the, I don't know, one of the 3 mosques lit up at night. I don't know if it's the newest or the biggest or the richest, I'm not sure. It's the same arch during the day. Not sure what this is. I think I had a wonderful dinner in this restaurant. I think it was Indian. Formal dress for a Brunei citizen. This is the royal boat, I think. It's beautiful work. This is downtown. It's got some bizarre things in it. Like this and this. And a lot of gold all over the place. This is where my post office was. The Brunei River is very nice, pretty clean. Well, I have some reservations about that, as you'll see. There's water taxis that take you back and forth from one side to the other. This is Kampong Ayer. This is really interesting. This is this dilapidated looking place. I'll show you. So, it's home to an estimated 20,000 people. Kampong Ayer consists of 28 contiguous stilt villages, named after the crafts and occupations traditionally practiced there, built along both banks of the the Brunei River. A century ago, half of Brunei's population lived here, and even today, many Bruneians, despite government inducements, still prefer the lifestyle of the water village to residency on dry land. You can see luxury cars lined up on the shoulder of the road, many of which belong to water village residents. Kampong Ayer is also home to many undocumented immigrants, Brunei's underclass. Founded at least 1,000 years ago and hasn't been painted since, the village is considered the largest stilt settlement in the world and has its own schools, mosques, police stations, and fire brigade. The entrance to a Pepsi machine. The interesting thing is, you can see the mosque. I'm not sure whether it's a mosque or the royal palace from here. It seems really ironic that you can see that. It's within walking distance. So you can see it. This is a civilization.
Is the river polluted?
Well, it's gotta be.
It's gotta be.
It's gotta be. In a minute I'll show you why, but
Imagine.
so these steps go down, I'm assuming, to the water taxis. The question was, is the water polluted? Probably.
Wow.
So there was one home that we could go into, and this was it. Pretty fancy, huh? I don't know if the others look like this or not, I don't know. The kitchen, pretty nice.
I
Now,
take it all sewage went into the river?
this is the bathroom, folks.
Yeah, right into the
Is the
river.
water polluted or not?
Yes.
Because down that hole is the river. So I assume the rest of the sewage also goes down there. I don't know. I don't know because 20,000 people live there, so
I know.
they must be very healthy, or so. I don't know. This is our hostess's. Didn't get her face for some reason. A nice front porch. A longhouse even there. We'll talk about longhouses in a minute. And there's the water taxis. There's a very pretty cemetery by the marketplace. These are not real people, but they're from the museum. You can see how people live in their, I guess these are longhouses, or by the river anyway. I guess the kids swim in the river. Seems logical. It's very hot there. Somebody should study their immune system. I'm sure it'd be very interesting.
Did you eat any fish there?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
I don't know if they come from the river or not, but this amazing museum, of which there are many museums, by the way, is the Royal Regalia building. And there was all these chariots and everything from the inauguration for the king, the Sultan. And then they had a silver jubilee with more pomp and circumstance and beautiful pageantry. Amazing. Again, I have pictures from this somewhere. This is the entrance to the Royal Palace with its 1,778 rooms. The Royal Boat. More mosque. This is the one that has the chandelier that's equivalent to the GDP of a whole country. This is a beautiful mural. I don't know what it says, but parenthetically, the last night I was there, my hotel wasn't too far from downtown. And I was walking home, it was about 10 o'clock at night after dinner, I guess. It's very safe there. And I saw these people sitting out on the sidewalk drinking coffee, and there it was, a 24-hour coffee shop with chairs and tables on the sidewalk. I had not seen it before at all. So I went and sat there, and there was music playing, sort of modern music. And the owner was there, and we had a chat. And he said, "Isn't it sad that with all this money there is in Brunei, there isn't a symphony orchestra, a first-class art museum? There is a university, but it's not a first-class university. The things they could be doing with this money." And really, I think people buy expensive cars and spoil their kids. I don't know. But he made a very interesting point. And I don't really know how far that descent could go these days, whether he's since then lost his head or what, but very interesting guy he was. And everybody out there was very interesting. Young looking, and I mean, they were young, and sort of hip looking, and the music was sort of modern, was modern. There isn't, like other places that have a lot of money, nobody seems to be leaving Brunei. In fact, people are trying to get in. So the lifestyle is pretty good there. Now, whether these people are civil servants or not, I doubt that they are. The market was fun. And this is another part of the cemetery. Make these beautiful hats. Look at those hats, aren't they neat?
Are those hand woven or?
Oh, I'm sure they are. They must be.
Do they wear them anymore, or
I haven't seen anybody wearing those hats. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. But they don't wear hats because they cover their heads. So, with it's very interesting. Their outfits are very colorful.
She eats a lot.
Okay, so I took a little tour into the interior and the longhouses, and you go on a dugout like this, maybe 6 or 7 of us on the boat, and you go through jungles, and you hear those sounds that we heard in the first slide. Nobody roaring. I didn't hear any tigers or lions or anything like that. But waterfalls, it's really quite beautiful, hot and muggy. And you arrive at a longhouse, where we stayed overnight. And the people were very happy to greet us. I think the tour company paid them quite a bit, I guess. And these older men with tattoos talked, I think in English, about the history of the longhouses and what the tattoos signified. The young people did not seem to be tattooed too much. And then we had dances from these young women. These are old pictures. Women didn't used to cover their breasts. I guess the British put a stop to that, I don't know. These are, so that's from, actually it's from Dutch Indonesia, but don't tell anybody. We were taught how to use a blowgun. That's very handy to know. And this was our sort of hostess. So this is what the longhouse looks like. I'm not sure how many dwellings are on here. I would say maybe 40 on each side. People have their own apartments. They cook in their own places. There's some communal eating. And then in the middle is where they dance and meet and do their crafts. I think that's the middle. Or that might be somebody's apartment. But that's what they look like. It's a form of housing that's used all over the world. Not so much anymore, but the Indians used it, and parts of Asia and Africa use the longhouse. It's pretty good. And these people, well, we'll talk about these people, who they are, but they're very peaceful and they manage to govern themselves very well. They have a lot of rules and regulations. Here's a little souvenir from the head hunting days. A few heads. Well, there's skulls now, of course. He was very cheerful and fun. This is the outside corridor of the longhouse, the inside corridor. And they love tourists. And this man is making something, I'm not sure what. This is a market. I don't think this is a longhouse. So, a longhouse is a type of long, proportionately narrow, single-room building built by peoples in various parts of the world, including Asia, Europe, and North America, the Indians. Many were built from timber and often represent the earliest form of permanent structure in many cultures. Common to most of these is that they are built raised off the ground on stilts and are divided into, so in places where there's likely to be flooding, that protects them from the flooding. If there's no flooding, they put the cattle, the cattle and the chickens and the roosters, what are they called, underneath. In fact, the Australian house is very much built like that on stilts for the same reason. So there's a more or less public area along one side and a row of private living quarters, billets, lined along the other side. So what we got was a single billet, which was a room with a straw mat and a sort of flimsy curtain, and that's where we slept.
Bathroom.
There was no mattress, there was no sheet, and it was pitch dark. And the outhouse was a good walk away. I don't know, my feet in yards are very bad, but I don't know, say 200 yards away. But it was pitch dark. So, and very, very quiet. So we went to bed. There was whatever there were in our group, 8 or 9 of us. Couldn't hear a sound except the sounds of the rainforest. And about, I don't know, 4 o'clock in the morning, I had to go to the bathroom. And I started to get up, and I felt underneath this flimsy little curtain, and I found this furry thing.
Oh,
You remember the giant rat? Oh, I remembered the giant rat. And I was terrified, terrified. So I didn't go to the bathroom. I didn't sleep. I was hot, cold. I don't know what I was. And then about when the sun was coming up, I heard somebody else in the corridor moving around. And I yelled at, because it was a Westerner, and I said something about, is there something outside of my curtain? I was so scared. And it was a little kitten.
Oh, no.
I could have gone to the bathroom. I probably would have fallen into the river or something if I'd gone to the bathroom.
Oh, no.
So these are inhabited actually in Brunei and other parts of Borneo by the Dayak people. And they are the native people of Borneo. They were feared for their head hunting practices. So this is a Dayak about to hunt a head. He needs a little hair on his head. I don't think they scalp people. I think they just took their heads. It was a very ritualistic thing, this head hunting. If it was during wartime, they had to present the head to the head of the other tribe. I mean, the whole body, the person who was heading the other tribe. And they would account for how many heads they took and all that kind of thing. But it served a lot of functions, these heads. It was part of a dowry that the women got. It was helped in cultivating the fields to have these heads around the field. And it actually increased the strength of the buildings, by adding heads to the foundation.
Oh, my.
And lots of other good uses of heads, so just remember that. So this is 1920s. That wasn't too long ago, but there's no head hunting now that we know of. I seem to still have my head. But this is an old Dayak house, and skulls are all along here and the weapons used to head hunt. It was a big cultural thing there. But the Dayaks are peace-loving people
Unless they're
who
fighting you.
live based on customary rules which govern each of their main activities. There's about 28 rules that govern washing and eating and laundry and whatever. And so that manages to keep them pretty peaceful, because this is a pretty intimate way to live. I mean, it's not as intimate as the way we live. We sort of live in a long, tall house. But, and these are our common areas. So this is a Dayak dance, and the girls get dressed up. This is a chief from way back. This is what I love about these areas, especially Indonesia and a little bit Malaysia, is a lot of the traditional culture is still there, the outfits and the dancing and the music. So on another day, I took a boat into the jungle to see the orangutans. And there is one.
Ah,
See him?
yeah.
They are pretty fast. So I had a hard time taking a picture of one. But there is one. Cute, isn't it? Looks like Donald Trump. And you know, Donald Trump had a lawsuit against Bill Maher because Bill Maher said there's no evidence that he wasn't descended from an orangutan. This is the airport, so I'm off to another stop. This was my 10-month trip,
Oh, wow.
so I can't remember where I went after that, but it's a very nice modern airport. I can't remember where, maybe Brunei. And we got a send-off from the Boy Scouts. I think these are Brunei Scouts. Cute, aren't they? But you can see they're very well fed. And a very nice shopping pagoda at the airport. I don't think it says come again to Brunei, but it says something that similar. I know that Salamat Datang means welcome, so it might mean come again. And this is the wild man of Brunei, of Borneo, but I never found him. So that's all, folks. So thank you very much.